All right, welcome to our webinar. We will wait additional 1 or 2 minutes and let more people to join. Thanks for being on time. It was a holiday in some places here in Germany and in Europe, so probably people got busy on the first day. Yeah, let's just wait another 1 or 2 minutes.
Excuse me?
Yes, hello.
Yes, hello.
Yes, hello. Are you recording this webinar?
Yes.
Okay. And will you put it online afterwards?
We will share it, yes, for the participants and the registrants.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so I see some few people joining. That's good. For the people joining in the last seconds, we are just giving another minute for people to join. Then we will start. And thanks for joining. All right, I will say we start.
Yes, let's start.
So welcome to our next webinar in our series, which is about how to justify cybersecurity investments when you are missing convincing arguments. Thanks for joining. Go to the next slide. I mean, today Yes, so we will do a quick intro and we will share some insights based on the registration we got from the webinar. And then we will actually show you very practical how to use risk quantification to justify cybersecurity investments. And then, of course, at the end, we will have enough time for a few questions. Next slide. Yeah, today we will be your hosts and speakers. So I'm Asrubal, I'm the CEO of Qualify, based in Munich. Very pleased to have you all here, and together with me is Herman. Herman, who are you?
I'm the founder of Qualify and Chief Strategy Officer, and I'm really happy to talk about cyber investment and how cyber risk quantification can help you.
Yes, and also based in Munich, so we are in the same room in our new office. We just moved last week. Let's move to the next slide. All right, so let's start with an icebreaker. Let's do a quick poll. Which movie best describes your last board meeting? And please make sure you press the submit button when you choose your answer. I hope some of these titles in the movies are familiar to you. Otherwise, you can see the description next to the movie. So press submit when you make your choice of movie. We're still missing some answers, so come on. Take your pick. Okay. It's coming. Okay. So we have we have a winner, which is Inception. Layers of confusion. Nobody really knew what was real. That's a very good one. And actually, and the second one, it was pretty much spread between you barely made it out live. So I'm sorry for you for that. And I think something we see also pretty often also talking to prospect and customers, everyone ignored the risk until it was too late. So we have a tendency of companies becoming really concerned about quantifying their risk and having clarity on the financial impact only after something bad has happened, and this obviously too late. Yeah. But it's good the layers of confusion, because we are really would like to avoid that confusion and have full clarity. Right, Herman?
Yes, and King's speech, nobody has really the clue answer yet. Yeah, and
there's no coaching available for that.
This is also what we see. We were at RSA conference some weeks ago, where we also got the impression that cyber risk quantification, they're even not talking about this anymore. It's hidden behind the scene. A lot of people talking about this behind, but not really using it properly, at least for cyber risk investments.
Right. Good. So let's move on. Thanks for your answers. And now I think, yeah, that's the final results. And now you can go to the next slide. Yes, so just to rephrase, so this is our expectation today, so that you leave this webinar with how to develop concrete options and how you can put together a strategic improvement plan to achieve the targets, not only for the next year. Normally, when you do an investment in cybersecurity, you really want to enhance your posture for the years to come. So it's normally it's a strategic, it's a long-term plan. And of course, in every long-term plan, there's also a short-term plan. So when you are asking and trying to justify your budget for next year, so we will cover that. We will see how to use certain approaches in cybersecurity quantification based on a specific risk reduction, and how to play with different what-if scenarios, even doing simulations. And of course, business at the end is about what is the impact. So talking the business, the language of business, which is money. So really showing metrics tied to financial metrics. And of course, everyone would like to see, I mean, if you have a clear idea where to invest, your exco and your board will be asking what is the return on investment. So really making sure you're putting your money in the right buckets. So hopefully this is our aspiration for today. So at the end of the next 50 minutes, go to the next slide. Let's have a quick look when we were doing the registrations. Of course, we were asking some questions, and of course, we had much more registrations than the people we have today. So there was some you can see here, where are you in terms of maturity of justifying your cybersecurity investments? And almost half, so 30%, is not justifying cybersecurity investments. That has two potential hypotheses. Either you are too lucky and nobody's questioning and you're getting all the money you can get, or you are in emergency mode and any investment is just being approved because everyone knows that you need to invest in cybersecurity. But it also shows there's an opportunity to become more systematic and more qualified when trying to justify your budgets. Few of you are using CRQ models, which is understandable. That still is, especially in the European context, we do see the topic of CRQ being still a bit of new and less mature compared to the US. I don't know if we have anyone from the US here. We will find out later. And many of you are using maturity scores, which can be tricky. Let's move to the next slide, and also an indication of the the demographics of the team, of the people here together, based on the registration, right? So we see a high proportion of directors, heads, C-level, so more than half, and also managers. So we have a good maturity and seniority in this round. So really appreciate that. Let's move. Yes, so just very quickly, I mean, some of you might have been exposed to this. We just want to clarify and set the right context. So what we are going to present today is very clear. And as you can see, I mean, the attacks are increasing, and understandably, the board keeps asking where are we mostly exposed when it comes to cyber risk. But the topic of today we'll be focusing on how much should we invest in cyber, what will be the return on investment, and how much could that material cyber even cost. I mean, these are valid questions that you, CISOs or Director of Information Security or risk officers, risk managers, you are getting these questions, and this is why having a better understanding in terms of not qualitative, high, medium, I mean, high, medium doesn't tell much, really knowing. And once you know in terms of financial impact and business impact, you can derive the right strategy and you can make sure you are making the right investments, and hopefully also showing a positive ROI, as we will see in some of the examples Herman is going to share with us. And in order to do that, you go to the next slide. We need to introduce the concept of top-down versus bottom-up. I mean, bottom-up is many companies have been doing risk management traditionally many years, so really look at all your assets. You still do need that for your day-to-day operations, but the bottom-up typically doesn't give you a financial figure, might give you some ranges, and it's focusing on the known, so things you know at your company. What about unknown? What about things other companies in the same industry, similar size, have been experiencing? And also bottom-up becomes pretty cumbersome, almost impossible to aggregate at the top level, let's say at the company level or at the subsidiary level. This is where top-down comes handy, comes to the rescue. So really being inherently aggregated, so it gives you a pretty clear understanding on the financial impact and disqualified benefits from the more than 10 years of insurance data. So we are backed 100% by Munich Re, which is the largest reinsurer of the world. And that you can imagine having access to more than 10 years of cyber incidents, not necessarily knowing how much money companies are paying for cyber insurance, but even more interesting, what has been the cost of actual cyber incidents. So no science fiction, so real. And there's more than 100,000 cases. And that allows us to be top-down. And this is one of the key advantages of CRQ also being used to justify investment and determine the right level for your budgets. That being said, let's now get into some action, Herman. I mean,
yes, most of the time, therefore.
We still haven't good in time, so we saw in the responses. So many people do not have not justifying the cybersecurity, but not everyone is in a luxury position to say they go to the board, they go to the CTO, the CIO, and they get the budget they need without many questions. And not everyone is in that luxury position. But even if they're getting all the budget, I think they need to demonstrate that the money is being spent in the right areas. I mean, they need to show what is the impact of those investments. So what do we have here? What do we want to share today? What tools are available? What kind of views and dashboards and insights can we leverage?
Yes. So to make it really good explicit, I have prepared here a demo case on a larger German international bank. We called it banking group, right? And it all starts here with a status quo and an executive report, what we have prepared. But I need this executive report just to explain the way from what is the status quo here in respect of cybersecurity? Where are areas for improvement? What should be the strategic direction the company should go into the future? And then from a strategic direction, come up to a strategic multi-year plan, and derive from a multi-year plan then the next year plan, a concrete plan, and try to quantify here the impact and return of investment. That is a way I would like to go with you. So from this executive report, we have a lot of different metrics which are interested, but I would like to focus here on this piece, which here the banking group is using the value at risk, which of the status quo here is an overall modeled expected loss of 411 million with a probability of 0.5%. This is equal 1 in 200 years. That is the main metric here the company is working with. It's a bank and regulated bank. This 1 in 200 years is also what BaFin and the regulator is asking them as a main risk metric. So 411 million is a number. It's quantified with our tool. But what does it mean? So this bank is working as other large organizations also with a risk framework. And here on the top right side, you see here a typical risk framework where there are different thresholds of risk, where this metric, the overall large loss, is put into a certain kind of decision triage. So the green area is what the CISO can work with it. So below 500 million value at risk, the CISO is fine, but if it comes above 500 million, he needs to go and get approval for the board of management. And even if it goes above 1 billion, then the supervisory board needs to approve this. This is a typical risk reporting threshold. And you can see here also from the description and the comments from this CISO of the banking group, he says, yes, we are still in the green area, but not that far away.
Getting close, right?
Yeah, close to the 500 million. So we need to be careful, because even if I do anything to protect the company and invest, even if we want to grow, and with growing company, this number will probably go beyond 500 million. So that is something that triggers some kind of consideration, strategic consideration.
It is already giving me an indication on where are our most critical risks. I see in the charts not only the total value, I see there are business interruption, data privacy. It is, can you talk about that? I mean,
yes.
What's that about?
Yes, so it's all about aggregating here risk on a level which is really understandable for the board of management, not too technical, but in the consequences of business interruption, data privacy breach, and financial theft and fraud. These are the main three financial consequences from any kind of cyber incident. That is a good split to show a kind of risk profile, which is the biggest, highest exposed risk area. And here for this banking group, it's not untypical that data privacy breach with all the private person data, PII data, this is the biggest risk, but also followed by business interruption. So these are the main top risk.
But it's not only about the overall numbers or the overall financial impact that we see in the millions. And I think the companies will also, they need to understand what is the likelihood, what is the frequency of those. So you mentioned 1%, 0.5% of probability.
Yeah.
How did, I mean, this is something that you invented, that you said, I think it's 1%, but what is the science and the mechanics behind that?
Yes, this is part of a typical loss expectation curve. It's a curve where any kind of probability put 1 point on that curve. Yeah, and there are some typical probabilities companies are working with. Yeah, at least for board presentations, the higher tail risk with rare risk, but high severity, low frequency, high severity. These are the most interesting values of a loss expectation curve. So, and here banking normally work with 1 in 200 years. You can work with 1 in 100 year, 1%. larger organization. I know Munich Re is working also with 1 in 1,000 years, so the really rare situations to manage even here these extreme events.
But how can I then use such a tool to help me to identify where should I start, where should I be investing, where should I have the most impact to
Yes.
reduce these numbers? I mean, these numbers depend on the company. You can accept it or not. So you say, no, we need to really improve and invest more.
Yeah. So
I'm not seeing that.
Yet. At least here is a starting point, the risk threshold. But also if you look here, for example, another trigger for change of the status quo is the peer benchmarking. What we can do here, it has seen displayed here in this chart, is a very important display of the relationship between the exposure of a company and how it is protected. So here on the y-axis, it's from very low to very high. The inherent risk exposure means what is the inherent risk depending on industry, the attractiveness to be hacked or so forth. Independent how it is protected, because the protection level is shown on the x-axis. So the combination of protection level and exposure is shown here in this chart. We call it risk balance. Each of this here bubble represents one of the exposures of this banking group, and DB stands for data breach. And you see here data breach is the highest exposure, and it's below average protected. So it's nearly in the red area, in the green, yellow area. It's not in the green area. A good area would be here on that here line, on that diagonal, like here financial theft and fraud. You see here business interruption, data breach. These are not really a good thing here area. And comparing this risk balance with the risk balance of industry average, what was done here with the industry average shows that this bank is behind industry average.
So the board won't be amused to know that this company is lagging the industry average in most of the areas. No. So that's already something to be conscious and alert.
Yeah. So at least this is a second trigger. Yeah. This is now first was a trigger of the CISO to foresee something in the risk threshold. Now it's peer benchmarking as a trigger to say here there is something to do.
You mentioned on the y-axis the inherent risk. So how did you determine that? I mean, where is this coming from?
Yeah, this is, I can show later also the platform. This is derived from the company profile the company has entered into. Yeah, the data.
Okay, so each company's model in the tool according to what they're doing in the business, how big they are, how much data they have.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which industry.
Yeah. It can be that can be an industry average, but also here it's done very specifically to this banking group. Yeah, and so that is the second trigger, and the third one is also here the cybersecurity control assessment done with our tool. Yeah? So we're asking here, how mature are you in respect of your cybersecurity controls? And we can digest any kind of framework, be it ISO, COBOL, or TSEX, or even here NIST. Yeah, we here this banking group is using NIST, and there has more than 100 controls, and that is much too complicated to display to the board of management.
And who's doing this assessment? Who is doing the maturity assessment?
Yeah, normally the companies we are working with have a certain kind of risk assessment already available.
Or it went through an audit, or maybe there's a good estimation somewhere.
They have also sometimes external companies doing assessments, like one of the big fours or other experts are doing it to come up with a certain kind of maturity for each of the control. And here on company level, that is the picture. If you look here, the banking group on this reddish square shows here the aggregated view by the control chapters, the 6 chapters of governance, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And you see here on the legend that is the maturity level. they are on average the best is protect and detect, and they're lagging behind on governance, respond and recover. And here you see already here another profile to develop at least a strategic direction. And here this CISO has put already here some targets on this kind, where I said the strategic direction should be to invest more in governance, respond and recover.
So these targets, they're coming from actually from the company, from the customer, based on the risk appetite, based on what they want to be. So this is not arbitrary. This is not set by us. This is where we want to be. And if I interpret these charts correctly, there seems to be a huge gap on the respond and recover part of the equation.
Exactly. So, and if there's a gap, then there's a clear call for action to improve. Right. So now we have here developed from some kind of trigger points, now at least a strategic direction, which is here on governance, respond and recover, because that is the playing ground, the work environment of the CISO. He can only impact on the controls.
So now with this information, the CISO and the security team, they can start to identify what to do to improve those areas. So behind each of these chapters, there's 10, 20 controls. How I can use such a tool to not only justify and show return on investment, but also to see the impact of those investments. Because I can be investing 50 million, but that is maybe not helping the company.
Yes. And that now we are coming to the core of our here webinar. It's all about here asking for the right investment. So here we have now another report which is really handy to show you here the different steps. And the first step is really working from a strategic direction to come up with a cyber strategy. Normally, the cyber strategy is a longer term one. This bank has decided to work with a 2 years horizon, and set here on the risk balance 2 specific targets here for business interruption and data breach, because these are the most exposed here areas. So it's not across the board. It's already a focus, a risk-based strategy, focusing on data breach with a higher focus, because the way to improve here data breach is much longer on the x-axis if you show that compared to business interruption. But both, and that is here displayed to the board of management. They want to have here a risk balance of 2.2 within the next 2 years. That is the strategy.
And this is prioritizing not everything, because not everything can be addressed at once normally, right? So in this particular case, is this focusing on improving the data breach and the business interruption part of the equation?
Exactly, In other companies, they have different gaps and different weaker areas, and that is where you also hear the bank has the chance to discuss with the regulator to produce a defensible position regarding DORA, that they're investing the money into the right area. That is really risk-based risk management, not just across the board, all 100 controls, but addressing the exposure which is highest exposed.
So how do I proceed from here? So what do I do to try to move the bubble, right? So in the charts, moving to the right place, or moving to the right, so closer to the greenish area?
Yes.
What happens? So how do I do that?
So it's a 2 years plan, and it's not feasible. Normally, you work with 1 year budgets. So the task is to break down here the 2 years target into an interim solution for a 1 year improvement program. And that is now how to get to such a program. So our tool is proposing already those controls which has the highest impact as a so-called top 10 risk, the highest impact to reduce here the risk numbers. And combine.
So I'm already getting hints from the tool where to invest, and I'm not starting from scratch.
No, that is already a good starting point for any kind of strategic discussion. But this bank has already more insights from, we learned just here the chapter controls have a different maturity level, and the CISO has already an idea where to focus So therefore, he worked with this suggestion and to build 3 different programs, different improvement programs for the next year. And this is what I can show you here next in this report. If you see here, the 3 options. One simulation was done with the focus of governance, response, and recovery, as original said. Yeah, you see here 47 controls need to be attached. And
those were the 3 areas that we saw before where there was a huge gap.
Yes, yeah. 47 controls, a lot, no? Nearly 50% of all controls needs to
That's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, and if they only want to go a little bit better, then it's probably cheaper. You know, that is something which costs 90 million. That is something the CISO needs to enter into the tool. This is not where we are best in calculating the costs, but what we are good in is calculating the risk reduction. Here is the calculated risk reduction of 20 million, and therefore here we have a certain kind of ROSI. And this kind of program is then also can be compared with to other options. And here the second simulation was done with a focus on zero trust project. Yeah, that is.
If you believe in zero trust, yes.
Yes. So that was one idea where they said we want to improve less controls, but with more investment and higher improvements in the maturity. And
so
yes,
there I see 71 million risk reduction. That's an amazing ROSI of 87%, right?
Yes, that's high. That's probably not the highest one because the third one, yeah, has a higher risk reduction in financial terms. It's 75 million compared to 71. Yeah, but it's much more expensive because it attached and impacted 79 controls. Yeah, so much more.
So you told us that the risk reduction is calculated on the fly immediately by the tool. That's the risk reduction piece, and that's part of the value,
Yes.
right? But what about the budget and the cost? How do we know that? Where did that 38 million come from?
Yeah, if you look here into this, yeah, you can enter here, describe the goal of this plan, who's responsible, but the cost of that plan needs to be entered manually by the CISO.
Because we don't know that.
Yeah, that is everyone has different buying power.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
So that is what needs to be entered by the company. But I can show you here also on that here zero trust program, 70 controls, and here we can open this one, and you see the controls, the concrete controls here, the first 10 of them, how they have been improved in the simulation. This is the status quo, and here the improved level. Yeah.
So we see here for each of these controls in that improvement plan, we see how they're moving 1, 2, 3 notches up.
Exactly.
In the maturity.
Yes. Normally 1 or 2, yeah. But here you see already also somewhere they have heavily invested in less controls, but with a higher impact. So if they go back here into that, you see then the impact of that. So remember here the risk balance chart, that were the target T1 and T2 for business data breach and business interruption, and the simulation 2 has now passed nearly half the way to the target. That is, at least is here from the visual point, from a qualitative view, already a good achievement for that simulation. But more importantly, and that is the essence why cyber risk quantification is more important than qualitative risk ratings, is the financial risk reduction. And that is shown here. You remember 411 million was the status quo of the overall value at risk. And that, because of the improvement of the 17 controls, is then reduced by 71 million to 340 million.
It's pretty significant.
Yeah, that is a significant reduction. You see that also in the risk profile, all different here risk consequence scenarios have contributed to that, but most importantly, it was the data breach which was the target, right?
And Herman, what about if I want to see smaller frequency? So I want to see annual or in the next 5 or 10 years. This is also something I can use the tool for.
You can here choose different probabilities. Here, the rarer, the more seldom you have the probability, the higher the absolute risk reduction will be naturally.
Of course.
That is part of the story. But now, for the decision, before we come to Rosie, to show that, it's really good to see here, this is a cool decision tool for the Board of Management report. Because now you can see here for all options, you remember that this is the preferred one. You see here how the bubbles are moving to that direction and have a focus here on that. But now if I go here to the first simulation, you see here the bubbles are moving only a smaller step, right? Yeah, that most likely they will not achieve in the second year such a...
And that's a very interesting, because you see in the simulation number 1, you are affecting and improving a much larger number of controls, which is not an easy task, right? So 47 versus 17 in this. So, but you can see the impact is less. So this is really, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, making sure you are putting your money in the right buckets.
Exactly.
In the buckets that will move the needle in the right direction. And sometimes people are investing and they think they're going to have a big impact. But if you don't have the tool to measure and to track it, you don't have the proof, you don't have the evidence.
If you talk the language of risk rating, you can improve the risk rating by the same degree, but in financial terms, in a totally different degree. But the financial language is a decisive one. Right. That is what the Board of Management wants to know. If they talk about investment, they want to see the risk reduction in euros. And here, if you see here the DORA one, which has even a higher risk reduction of 75 million, but is much more expensive, results in a smaller ROSI. ROSI means return of security investment. And that is now the last piece here on that slide to show here for all of these options, that this risk reduction, is the secret sauce. That is missing. If you do a ROSI, then you have a standard formula where you need to have as input the cost of investment and the risk reduction in euros. And you see here the risk reduction of 75 million compared to the investment, the cost of 54 million. With that formula ends up with a return of security positive of 39%. So with the other option of zero trust, you see here.
That is showing a much higher ROSI. But if you are a financial institution, you might not have the choice, so you need to do the DORA stuff to be compliant. So it depends on the company, it depends on what you have in front of you.
But at least even at the bank, you can discuss with the BaFin and talk about whether that is the best money, or spend a little bit more money even than to cover in addition to that some more DORA specific controls. But you have a much better negotiation basis with such a risk quantification, because you are not talking just on controls and risk rating, but in financial terms.
And you were showing, Herman, the top three scenarios, right? Three.
Yes.
But I mean, maybe I need to play. I need to design and plan and see what is the impact. So what about I want to do 5 or 8 or 10?
Yes, you can do as many simulations as you want. You can play around and optimize.
Are you sure?
Yes, of course. I can show it to you here in the platform.
How we don't have time for that today.
Not the whole time, but at least I can show you a bit how easy it is to come up with such a simulation.
Just a few words, how complicated or how easy is to really do these simulations and play and come to these numbers? I mean, what we're talking about in terms of requirements, what kind of input is needed and the timeline?
Yeah, what I will show you now is how the whole thing can.
Maybe 5 minutes and then we can open up the Q&A.
Yes, I will speed up.
You need to share.
Yeah.
No, we see the screen. Yeah, we see the
Okay.
button. Yeah.
What you see here now is our platform, and it's all starting with the status quo quantification. Here, the business basic exposure data is some easy information about the company profile. We work on here some consequence scenario, worst case scenarios, and here in this bucket we have all the controls. Yeah, here on the NIST side, all 100 plus controls with maturity level entered. Yeah, that is the status quo. With that, you get already all the values we have talked about in the other report.
And the consequence scenarios are how many questions we are talking about or data points?
Yeah, that can be a maximum 60 to 80, depending on the company profile. These are 4 interviews, each 1 hour, with different stakeholders. And then you have really company-specific worst-case scenarios developed.
So we really contextualize this and bring very close to the reality of the company. Yeah. So it's not science fiction. It's not some made up.
With all the information requirements, we have done project within weeks, not month or half a year or so. That can be done quickly because most companies are already prepared and have here the most important, the most amount of data input is coming from the maturity assessment.
Can you show us 2 or 3 examples of questions we asked there in the consequence scenarios?
Yes, for example, well, let's say here business interruption.
Yeah, I mean, for manufacturing companies, we know with this our experience, but
the bank
business interruption is probably the highest risk from a cyber attack.
But even here, we said second highest for the bank was because they have online banking. Yeah, so the highest scenario here was in Germany. What is the gross profit per day? Here, 21 days outage was the longest foreseeable, 75% risk reductions, no reserves, recovery time. So, these are then something what you can enter here into the platform, and that's it. Yeah. So
I see.
Yeah, that's rather easy. Yeah, but the only piece which takes a little bit longer time depending on the availability of the people, but it's only 1 hour interview each of the 4 people.
Yeah.
So if you have done the status quo quantification, then for a simulation of an improvement program, what you do is just change the control maturities. So you take the status quo and go into the control chapter and then improve the maturity level compared to the status quo, like here on this simulation from basic to advanced.
So you assume that this control is being improved.
Before you have really invested the money, you can simulate such an improvement program. And you do that here for 17 controls. Whatever you do, you can really play around and change here. We have.
How long do I need to wait after moving up and simulating the improvement to get the results?
It's in seconds.
In seconds. So it's real time.
It's real time, and you come up here with as money here. So we have done here all these 3 simulations I've shown you in the other report, and that's you see here then also the easy one here, the model large loss, how they have been reduced and the bubbles have moved to the other
to the right direction. All right.
That was 5 minutes. A quick.
Excellent. We are right on time. So let's stop here. I think this is what we wanted to share with you. We can open up for some questions, Q&A. You have the choice to just pick up or just write on the chat, and we will repeat it. while the others are thinking, sometimes we need some time to warm up for people start asking questions. We do have one question. The system is based on what methodology? Herman, that's
yeah, my topic, methodology.
That's model.
Yeah, it's all about the model. And as you explained,
that's not Herman's model.
No, that is Munich Re's model. Yeah, that is based on the philosophy of an insurer thinking about financial consequences, not in the causes of loss. Because as an insurer, you normally do not know all potential causes. There are so many unknown risks. Why are buying companies insurance? Because they want to insure known risk, but also the rest risk, the unknown risk. So a model for Munich Re, which is really decisive for them, that they are the biggest cyber reinsurer of the world, they need to have a good model, which is a top-down. It's always focusing what can happen on company level as a financial consequences from different, from the whole universe of causes and incidents.
And in the model, we have all these possible loss that you can experience, right? So ransomware, privacy breach, legal fees.
Yes, so it's all about managing complexity because there are so many variables, and Munich Re managed to work with 11 different so-called threat scenarios. Threat scenarios are those scenarios which covers nearly 99% of all insured losses. And we have extended also here the threat scenarios with other consequence scenarios. So what we are here can cover as risk universe, it's really immense. So we talk about 80 of 90% of the original risk, which we can already cover.
Okay, good. I hope that answered the question to the person that asked that. Raise your hand if you want to pose a question. Don't be shy. Or just put it on the chat as you wish. And while we are waiting for questions, just wanted to add, I think I mentioned that before, but it's the whole model that Munich Re has been using the last 10 years. And again, we have data for more than 100,000 companies that have experienced a cyber incidents. It's truly global, so more than 80 countries across 130 industries. And it's not only about small loss claims and also large loss claims. And the model is continuously updated because Munich Re has skin in the game. Their cyber insurance or reinsurance cyber is one of the main business areas of Munich Re. So this model is constantly being updated every year. Not only because all the claims coming in, but also the cyber threat landscape is changing. The hackers becoming more sophisticated.
Yeah. So there's typing.
So someone is typing a question. Anyone else? Raise your hand. Okay. Looks like a long question.
See.
Hello, Alfred speaking.
Alfred, yes.
Hi, Alfred. Go ahead.
I skipped the writing.
Good.
So you talked about this banking company with multi-billion dollar estimation and things like that. But how can this be scaled down to smaller companies or smaller projects? For example, I'm working in the automotive industry, but here in the engineering parts and the R&D part, how can I use your service or tool to convince my project leader from the beginning that it is necessary to have an eye on cybersecurity related implementations, for example. How can I utilize your tool in a way that it is understandable for a non-technical guy, let's call it like that?
Yeah, so let me take try to answer. So on one side, the tool is not only for large companies. I mean, we just have this example, but as I mentioned, we have also small loss claims and large loss claims. Of course, it will depend on the industry, but we also have smaller customers, right? And the tool also helps you to quantify not only the company level, but also subsidiary level or even business unit level, or let's say even a critical function. If you think about banking, you say mobile banking, for example, can be a critical function for a bank. What we don't do is to quantify at the asset level, because that's a bottom up.
Okay, yeah.
So we don't do that, and this is not our strength. But you can quantify if you have a business unit, you can quantify that, then you bring that context into the tool. And again, we always check and we will always confirm we have enough data to benchmark you with and to do a reasonable quantification. So the short answer is probably yes. And it's not only for large companies.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Want to add something to that, Herman?
No,
Does that make sense what I'm
of course.
answering?
No, it's the methodology behind is made for all kind of risk. Yeah? It's continuous curves behind that, starting for small ones. But then the advantage is that for smaller risk, you do not need all the scope of inputs. Yeah,
Yeah, you can have less input. Yeah,
yeah, you can have also a leaner input and even be quicker.
Yeah, that's also possible. We see another question in the chat. So how do you financially quantify your risk in your matrix? What is with an audit from departments? So I think this is getting into the model. So how we assign these financial figures, also talking about the consequence scenarios and the different loss components feeding each of these consequence scenarios, but also talking maybe about the simulations, the Monte Carlo simulations.
Yeah. So what we do here in the background for the methodology is, I told you about the 11 threat scenarios, which are decisive. They're covering nearly 99% of what we see here as loss consequences. And for each of these threat scenarios, we simulate 1 million of different kind and types and variations of this threat with different extent of different loss components, which we call. We differentiate 7 different loss components, which are also shown here in the platform. And the combination of each of these loss components for each of this simulated loss comes up with a number for such a...
They feed these consequence scenarios.
Yes. And then you order all these 1 million by size, and out of that you get a loss expectation curve. And that is a way how a Monte Carlo simulation works. And based on that curve, you can then have for any kind of probability a certain kind of extent.
And let's not forget, we profit from a huge database of actual incidents and what were the costs of those incidents. So these are where we get these costs, right?
Yes, because that is important. Yeah, we have a lot of lost data. I think the most available data you can think of in Germany, in the world, because Munich Re is the biggest cyber reinsurer, which means we also collect cyber losses from primary insurers all over the place.
And there are public databases out there, but they're only tip of the iceberg. So that's very limited.
yeah, we have tested them, and they are often missing a lot of different loss components and even consequence scenarios. Yeah. What is with an audit from departments? I'm not sure whether I understand that correctly, but of course, if there's an audit on different maturity levels or department level, that can be
used as an input.
Can be used as an input.
Yes,
right?
And of course, you can also challenge or check when it was an audit because something happened, then you can compare that to what was the quantification, what was the estimation. Maybe the user is now providing more color to the question. I don't know if we answered the question. I hope we did. Oh, excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Glad to hear. We still have 2 or 3 minutes. Last call for questions.
Okay.
All right, so we can stop here. You get 2 minutes, 3 minutes back to your calendar. Big thanks from our side for being here, from listening. We will share the slides and the recording. So thanks for being here. And of course, you will know how to find us in case you have additional questions or you would like to learn more details about CRQ. Have a great evening, great rest of the week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.